When you think of Batman, what do you think of? A dark and gritty detective who will do anything to protect Gotham? Maybe a grisly crime scene that only the Caped Crusader could solve? Or perhaps one of his many psychopathic, violent, homicidal villains, such as Kite Man? Wait, that's not right. Here, what about Polka Dot Man? Still not scared? Maybe Calendar Man? What about Clock King? Batmite? Not even Crazy Quilt? Now I'm thinking about it. Why does Batman have all these crazy villains? I mean, for a character as dark as Batman, it's kind of odd to have this many weird villains. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. What's going on, Batman fans? It's me, the X-Men guy, and today we're going to be taking a look at some of Batman's craziest adversaries and finding out why such a dark vigilante has so many absurd and wacky rogues. But without further ado, let's get into the video. In the late 30s, superheroes were fresh on the scene. Characters like Superman, the Submariner, and Batman were all making their debuts. Now, in the early days, Batman was quite violent sometimes, even using a gun and taking on serial killers and mobsters. Once Robin came around, though, things seemed to chill out a bit. Batman stopped using a gun, and the villains were switched to less grounded, more fantastical gimmicks, such as the Joker, Two-Face, and the Penguin, and many more. However, these villains were still murdering. But then something changed. In 1957, DC Comics released Detective Comics 250, where Batman and Robin faced off against the crook who stumbled upon alien technology. Now, looking back on this, it may not seem too crazy of a story, but you have to keep in mind, leading up to this, Batman was mainly fighting more down-to-earth supervillains, but this was nothing compared to what was about to come. Very next issue, Batman is framed to be an alien. 17 issues later, Batmite is introduced. 3 years later, we see Kite Man for the first time. Then Polka Dot Man in Detective Comics 350. So why did this change occur? Well, if you want a deeper dive on the topic, I would strongly recommend Comic Tropes video on the topic. It's where I got a lot of information for this video from. So anyway, it's not fully clear what the exact reason for this is, but thanks to Comic Tropes, we have a vague idea of what may have happened. You see, around this time, DC wanted to go in a new direction. Two of their best sellers at the time were freshly reinvented Flash and Green Lantern. The thing in common with these two series is that they were both based in science fiction. The heads at DC thought that science fiction was the best way ahead for their books, and thus the change in the Batman line. However, in this theory, I feel there could be another factor, another possibility leading to the change. This factor is the Comics Code Authority. You see, in the early 50s, parents were concerned with violence in their children, and what they blamed were comic books. Even though there was no correlation between comic books and violence, in an effort to stay in the good graces of their target audience, comic companies developed the Comic Codes Authority, which would keep their books appropriate. This was very strict, and I think may have been another reason for the change in Batman comics. Batman's enemies were not able to use their common motivations of murder and such, so the book became a bit directionless. Seeing the success of the Flash and Green Lantern, I think DC used this opportunity to give back direction to the Batman comics. Years later, when the Comics Code eased up on editors finally felt comfortable letting Batman's villains go all out, a return to the status quo. Special thanks to Comic Tropes for the information for this video. Also, if you want to learn more about Batman's villains, I strongly suggest James Popcorn's newest video. It's really good and will be linked in the comments. And finally, shout out to one of my biggest fans, Lewis. He's been following the channel for years, And with that being said, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.